Hello and welcome back to Up the Villa. We're back now in Champions League action. Aston Villa sitting top of the Champions League. Long may that continue. Joined by Ryan. How are you, mate?
Very well, mate. Enjoying sitting top of the pile of this Champions League league. So, very much looking forward to the game.
Cool. So on today's episode, we're going to go and have a look at Brugge. We're going to take a look at how they play, their system. What do they do well? What do Aston Villa need to avoid getting into? We're going to predict the Villa lineup. We're going to have discussions on Villa's midfield as well. But going into this game, Ryan, fourth Champions League game then. How are you feeling?
Absolutely loving the journey, mate. You know, to be sitting top of the pile after 3 games is incredible. Back-to-back home wins, the away win to kick it all off. It's just a brilliant feeling being in this competition, and we're as a club we're relishing it, aren't we? I'm not getting tired of the anthem playing and joining in the sing song at the end of it as well. And we're just like, it's a special competition, isn't it? You realise how big it is now you're actually in it. Like sometimes when you watch it from the outside, it doesn't feel like it does now. Now we're engrossed in it and we're part of it. And you know, you've got that clout, ain't you? That you're part of the Champions League, and that feels good. That feels good to me. And the start that we've made just enhances that further. So very much looking forward to this next game number 4, and going for a potential 4th win, which sounds absolutely incredible. Very, very doable.
Yeah, it's a big challenge, and as Emmy would say, it's an opportunity. And this now, and I think I highlighted this a couple of weeks ago, that after the 2 home games, the next 2 away games are really interesting for me to see where we are within our European journey, because Champions League so far has been an absolute dream. 3 wins. We've beat Bayern Munich. We've played very well in the last game against Bologna. And we know how difficult Europe is. You know, nobody needs to say to us that, you know, you need to be careful because you don't disrespect teams. Because when we was in the Conference League and we were playing Olympiacos, we were playing Zrinjski Mostar, we were losing to Legia Warsaw. We know how difficult Europe is. And these weren't teams that are of the caliber of Bayern Munich, etc. And teams like Bologna, who've done really well the season before, getting Champions League in Serie A as well. But these next 2 games, away games as well, I feel like they're a real good test for us to see where we are, because we did struggle last season in Europe. You know, we only won a couple of games, didn't we? So we found it a little bit difficult. So these next 2 are tough games. We've got Brugge, who are doing well in the Belgium League. We've got Leipzig, who are doing well in the Bundesliga as well. But Brugge, I think, is going to be a difficult game. You know, they've only won 1 game so far. They're at home. They seem to me to have a couple of little weapons that can hurt us, more so their system and tactics, which we'll get into in a second. But how do you feel like going into this away game? We're going to prepare for it, and do you sense the same as me that this is quite important that we get out of the next 2 in a really good position?
Yeah, 100%, because like we got to the semi-finals last season of the conference, and like you've touched on, I think we only won 1, Luke. I think it was AZ Alkmaar away, and we had some real tricky away days last season. And I feel getting that opening win against Young Boys, I felt like we'd probably learnt from all them games. We took something out of all them fixtures last season and we brought it to this season. It's like, okay, that's done. We learnt from it. Can we take what we've learnt and bring it into this season? And we got off to an absolute world-class start. 3-0 against Young Boys, who are, like Bruges, a seasoned Champions League side, aren't they? They compete in this competition pretty much season in, season out. So for us to do that on the opening game, now we've got to try and do it again. Like, compact stadium, which we didn't really get on with last season. You know, we're going to get a boisterous crowd, so we've got to deal with that. But I feel like the lessons we've learned from last season will stand us in good stead for the game on Wednesday night. And yeah, I'm very looking forward to it. I feel like away from home, I know we've had the slip up against Tottenham on Sunday, but away from home, our form has been terrific. We've not been conceding goals in the Champions League, which is also a good thing because Premier League we've been quite loose. So yeah, I feel like we are much better prepared from our past competition last season and bringing it into this season.
And I know Emery always likes to keep every competition separate. He likes to work within Champions League and that's the Premier League. But I think it's also important that we bounce back from the weekend and we put in a real big, solid performance and get back on track. And I think the big thing about us, and I spoke about this before the game against Spurs, was Villa's consistency is what's very good. I think we go back to when we lost them 3 games in his first season here around January when we lost to Leicester and there was the 3 losses in a row. Off the top of my head, I don't think we've lost 3 matches in a row. So I think we're good at bouncing back and remaining consistent. And that's so important for this team because even though we lost to Spurs on a one-off game, we'll still probably finish higher than them because we've got that more consistent bounce back nature about us. And that's what I think we are and what we do really well. So I think it's going to be important that we do bounce back. It's another away game. We can prepare well for it and we can just go into it and hopefully get some confidence because
go on. I feel like there's a different vibe in the Champions League, isn't there? Like, there's a funness, I think, for me. Is it like a bit of a pressure release from the Premier League where, you know, we're looking to get top 4 and there's that pressure week in, week out to maintain that? I feel like even though there is underlying expectations, there'll be an expectation of where we want to get to from Emery and within the club. But I don't feel that pressure's on the players. I feel like they are just going out and playing pressure-free football, and it makes us like really dangerous. And like for us, we're sort of we're an unknown, aren't we, in this competition? And I feel like that's aiding us as well. I feel like, you know, we've caught teams out like Bayern. Like, yes, they're an experienced team and they've played in some hostile environments, but Villa Park that night there was an air about Villa Park, wasn't there, that we was going to do it, and you could feel it inside. And I'm sure them players felt it on the pitch, and you know, them sort of atmospheres that we can generate is like, it's because there's a freshness about us playing in this competition, isn't there? And I feel like we're still taking that away from home. Yeah, I don't feel like there's any pressure on us going into this game, and that way we can play relaxed, chilled football, and which suits us to the ground, and the results have proven that. So yeah, I feel like that's a big plus for us.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So Bruges, I've done my research, Ryan. I've gained some understanding on how they play. I'm not going to lie, I don't watch them every week. I very rarely watch Belgian football whatsoever. But from what I've been able to put together, they are a team that are going to pose us problems for the way in which we sometimes have fundamental problems at defending teams in transition. So here's what I've gathered and I've found. So Bruges, they're playing a 4-3-3, but from what I've seen, they play with a narrow 3 and then they play with a narrow 2. So it becomes a 4-3-3, which is very narrow and very compact. In the Belgium League, when they are free-flowing, they are having a lot of possession, they're dominating teams. Sometimes they might become a 4-1-4-1. And what you'll see is a lot of players that will be pushing into the opposition half. They'll have more width. They'll be a lot more dominant. But I found one little case study from the knowledge that I've found on these. So this was a league game that they played. And as you can see from the league game, they're a little bit more expansive. They're leaving 2 at the back, which is an area that we should have exploited against Spurs, which we didn't do. Everybody's a little bit more attacking. My case study is coming from the game against AC Milan. Now, against AC Milan, what we can see is that they've got that 4-3-3 shape. So we've got that narrow 3 within the middle. Number 68 is a lot deeper. Obviously, he's playing against Rafael Leao, etc. So there's going to be a lot of defending to be done there. But you'd imagine that he wants to be in and around that position. And you can really see that compact central area. Now, when I'm talking about the problems that they can pose for Aston Villa, it now starts to come to life in the game against AC Milan. They played really good against AC Milan. They offered a lot of threat against AC Milan. And what we can see here now is we've got AC Milan player in the, what colour's that? Grey. So he's got on the ball, and what we can see, we've got that narrow 3, and we've also got the narrow front 3. Now, what happens when that ball goes into a central area to the AC Milan player? Boom. That front 3 are aggressive and they want to win the ball back quickly. Once they win the ball back quickly, they turn it over. They look to go out wide. They look to hit on transition as fast as possible to get into these areas out wide where they can run through that little channel and they've got a shot on goal. So we've got another scenario now here where the ball has gone into central midfield. We've got the narrow 3, we've got the front 3, and that ball has been won in that central area. The ball's been turned over quickly. They're really good at finding that next pass. They know where that player is. They know where that danger area, and they know the places on the pitch where needs to be exploited. And the wide players know when to make those runs, and they know where those runs need to go and what need to come from. We've got another scenario here now. So we've got the midfield 3. We've got a centre-back that's stepping up. So we've got the ball now that's going into an AC Milan player. And you can already see 1, 2, 3 are swarming in that central area to win that ball. They managed to win the ball back quickly, win it here, and we've got that pass on there. Quickly into those front players, and then they're away. They're exploiting that area. They're exploiting that area there, which is where that pass likes to go to. Once they win that ball, everybody's on the bike, everybody's going, and they're off. And then finally, that move ends up with another shot. So those are the areas that I've highlighted in which Bruges are really good. It's kind of like setting a bit of a trap. They want the ball to go in central, and then they're on you. Now, why I'm mentioning this is because sometimes we have the tendency from a Diego Carlos pass to put it into that midfield. If that pass is loose, they're going to be on that like a rash. If that pass is loose into a Tielemans, or it's not quite right, or Onana's dwelling or turning into traffic, they're going to be on him as well. So for me, this is something that I really want to avoid, because this is how they played against AC Milan. And I imagine they're going to want to do something similar to Aston Villa, because what are Villa really good at? That double pivot is really, really strong. So a lot of teams try and shut out that double pivot. They're going to want to get the ball. If it goes to Rodgers, nick that ball off him quickly as well and break. So I think we've got to be really wary of everything that I've mentioned. We will talk about where Villa will be able to do damage as well. But with all that said, Ryan, how are you feeling on that?
Well, I don't know much about Bruges, so thank you for your presentation, Luke. Yeah, they look very, very well drilled, very well organised, very compact. When they are breaking and getting them balls, they're getting shots away, and that's a sign of danger. For us, would they want to play? I don't know. Say the away team, are they going to want us to have the ball, right? And then, like you say, then bang, exploit us. And you touched on their mistakes. You had the mistakes against Crystal Palace in the cup. Carlos, Pau Torres against Tottenham. Them balls, they're going to be happy, I feel, to surrender possession. Let us try and build out the back, and then, like you say, catch traps, which is something we've got to be aware of. Obviously, we will have double pivot is brilliant. like the way we move, the way we bait the press and stuff like that. But when it's fed incorrectly, that's when you're starting to have issues. And Bruges seem very, very capable of capitalising on them issues. I watched the highlights of the Dortmund game. That was their first home game. They've obviously played Milan away, and they won another game away. But that Dortmund game, they were very much in it, Luke. They were creating opportunities. They hit the woodwork on a couple of occasions, and it was a late Gittins goal around the 76th minute. They did go on to score another two when they were chasing the game. One was a penalty in like the 95th minute, but they were very, very much in that game. So this is a difficult game, mate. This is a very difficult game, and you highlighting them strengths, just makes you aware of the task that we've got on Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's again, it's one of those where to win any game of football, you've got to earn the right to win it. And that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to play well to win this game. It's not a case of Villa rock up there because we're a Premier League team and they're going to roll over and we're just going to steamroller it. They're going to do things to make it very difficult for us to have a good evening because we're a good team now and teams are fully aware of how good we are. So they're going to have to find ways and clever ways to hurt us. And, we saw against AC Milan how good they are and how many chances that it can create. So we're going to have to do well in their stadium as well. So, yeah, we spoke about their threats, etc. And obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Villa over the weekend of the performance against Spurs, etc. And I just really want to talk to you, Ryan, about a few positions within this Villa team. There's no meltdown from me. There's no sort of thinking that we're a bad team, etc. But I just want to touch on just our best team at the minute. So what I mean by that is, so here I have drawn a lineup here now of Villa's team, and I think a lot of Villa fans will agree that they prefer Konsa at centre half. So if we're saying Konsa's at centre half, then our right back, our best right back we've got available is Matty Cash. So the perfect back five for Villa would be at this moment in time on form and of the season. We could debate Maatsen, etc., but I think Digne is having a good season. Digne, Pau, Konsa, Cash, Martinez. Onana currently had a good first half against Spurs, and Tielemans has been Villa's best player this season. Ollie Watkins, no doubt for me, starts every single Villa game, and Morgan Rogers. Either side of that, I think we need to have a little bit of a chat about what's going on there, because if I'm Leon Bailey, and I'm being deadly serious now, if I'm Leon Bailey and I'm a right winger and I'm seeing John McGinn playing right wing ahead of me, I'm having a serious conversation with myself, and I'm having a conversation about what am I doing, or why am I not starting games with the trickery, the flair, the guile, the ability, the numbers from last season. I'm thinking I've got to sort myself out right here now. Then that would lead me on to saying if McGinn doesn't play right, the only viable position I see for him is playing on the left. And then when I think about the left, we've got Ramsey, who's playing on the left. And I know football's not all about numbers. It's not all about goals. It's not all about assists. But when you're thinking about a creative team and a team over the course of a Premier League season, a team over a Champions League campaign, you can't just have Watkins and Rogers scoring goals for Villa. But we cannot go through the whole of this season with just Watkins and Rogers scoring. And then that leads me on to thinking about Rogers. And I'm thinking, if Rogers doesn't score or play well or have an 8 or 9 out of 10, where are the other goals coming from? So what I'm basically saying is that either side of the double pivot for me, we need to start seeing more attacking intent. with goals and assists. Because if I run through the numbers now, Ramsey's played 9 games, 6 starts, 2 assists, no goals. Rodgers played 10 games, 10 starts, 3 goals, 2 assists. McGinn's played 8 games, started 7, no goals, no assists. We've got Bailey with 9 games, 6 starts, no goals, 2 assists. Watkins has got 10 games, 10 starts, 5 goals, 2 assists. The question of him not starting games for Villa cannot be the question, because the answer's telling me there that he's got the numbers to back up the starts. And then Duran's got 10 games, no starts, 4 goals, 0 assists. So Bailey's got to be in this team, and he's got to find his form pretty quickly. So what are your thoughts on either side of that?
Yeah, I felt it for a couple of weeks now that the balance isn't quite right in this team. Obviously, the emergence of Morgan Rodgers centrally has sort of changed the way we've set up. Like last season, Bailey, when we got the best out of him, his starting position on paper was alongside Watkins, wasn't it? And if John McGinn was on the right, where he played today, then Bailey would move out and offer that width. So it sort of become a 5 in midfield and Watkins up top on his own. Now, Rodgers isn't doing that. Rodgers won't go out to the right-hand side. That's not his game, and that's not what he's being told to do. He's coming deep, he's on the half turn, he's turning, and he's progressing the ball forward. And then that's where we need players around him, i.e. a Ramsey in the half space coming through, a Bailey on the right. Now, I feel like we are struggling. Like them numbers you've just reeled off there, like I think only Ramsey got a goal in Champions League, but nothing else. McGinn's got one in Champions League, nothing else. Jaden's not contributing. Bailey's not contributing. The final third, the final action in the final third is really lacking. And it's a bit of, it's the cohesion's not quite there. The wavelengths, the link-ups. Like, even Rodgers, I need to give it more time and more thought. But, is Rodgers' position hurting us? Having this central guy that's going to turn and carry, but then offer no link up, no build up. It seems like it's 100 miles an hour in the final third when we need to be more meticulous. We need to be more crafty, especially against teams that we should be dominating. I feel like we can build from the back fine. Kamara obviously is going to give us more control when he comes into the team, and it won't be long before he's back in and firing. So once we build and we become press resistant, and then it goes to the final third, and I just feel like there's not that control there, Luke. It's quite rash. It's quite rash, and yes, we are picking up goals and picking up wins, but I feel like there's another evolution to this team. I feel like Emery's got the whole squad back now, so I'm going to be interested to see how it shapes up. And obviously, Matson's been used sparingly, really, and he's got a lot of pace. Ramsey, he doesn't want to hug the touchline. He's not going to hug the touchline. So Luca Dean does get up and down, but Matson's a lot more attacking intent, isn't he? So I'll keep going forward and then bringing myself back to the defence and trying to think how we build, because Emery likes, and he has liked, 2 fullbacks. If Cash is fit, Cash is playing. Like I feel like he's trying to move away from playing Konza right back and creating that free, but we keep getting suckered back into it because we didn't have the funds or whatever to get the right back that we wanted. So we've only got Cash, and I feel like Nedeljkovic not quite ready or trusted yet for the bigger games with Emery. So we do get drawn back into that free, and is that hampering the build-up as well? So I feel like now we've got the whole squad, I think we'll go through Bruges, Liverpool, but I think there'll be a bit of a reset I'll do during the international break on how we deal with these issues up top, really, because But there's a reason why Bailey's lacking it. It can't just purely be down to confidence and like something's not quite clicking for him, is it? The link-ups are not quite there. They're not feeling comfortable. Like Watkins' body language on Sunday, I don't feel like he felt completely comfortable. There's some ironing out to do in that final third, and we've got the players there to do it. Look, we've got the squad there to do it. Like Ramsey can be absolutely explosive and unmarkable when he's in that half space. He needs an overlapper. Look at Moreno. Like Rodgers was absolutely superb when Moreno was overlapping. There's distractions going on, and nobody penetrates that half space like Rodgers does. Bailey again, the trickery like on the wing, but we're not getting these players, or we're not giving them the backups to do what they got to do. Like McGinn will be backing up Bailey. Now it's either McGinn or Bailey, and McGinn's not going to force that touchline. Like our right side was completely gone against Tottenham, really, the second half when we needed an outlet. Like so that. There is a lot to work on, I think.
Yeah, there is a lot to work on. And the reason why I've decided to mention this on this one is because I think, and I pray, I think this is the perfect game for Bailey. In my opinion, for him to get some confidence and for what he's going to be up against, I think it's going to be the ideal scenario for him and Ramsey in this game. Now, the reason why I've gone with this lineup, and we'll talk about it in a second if you want to remove anybody from that lineup. But I'm just thinking within how narrow Brugge are going to be, there's going to be space out wide. The wide areas are the areas that we're going to hurt them, in my opinion, because, yeah, they're going to probably fan across here a little bit. But in this area, and in this area especially, getting on the ball is going to be vitally important. It's going to need bravery because you're going to be getting the ball and there's going to be players that are going to be on you straight away. But if we can bypass that and then get Bailey, Ramsey on it, and like what you're talking about, and I think it would sound harsh to say Digne's got to come out of the team, but if we want more width and we want more pace, and we know that left back is actively acting as a winger, maybe a game for Maatsen's going to be important with him getting into those attacking areas, because you've spoke about what we want the front areas to be. We do kind of want it to be a front five, because you get the five with Watkins, Rodgers, Ramsey, Maatsen, and Bailey. Then that becomes your front five, and that if I'm talking about what's the ideal position for this team to be in, it's something like that, because that's what the build-up is taking us to. So I think really Bailey needs to improve. We all know he needs to improve. But I'll go back to a little bit of what's his name? Warnock, the manager.
Neil Warnock.
Neil Warnock, right? When he's talking about Adel Taarabt, and he's saying, like, if you're bad, I'm going to play you. And if you're bad again, I'm going to play you. And I kind of feel like it needs to be a bit like that now with Bailey. Like, you've got to play and you've got to perform, because on his day, he's our best right-sided player. So
go back to when we qualified for the conference, like that run. Like Bailey weren't really producing, but Emery was playing him because he was keeping the shape and the balance, and he finally played him into form. And I feel like that's what we got to do now. And I feel like he got an assist against Palace the other night. I think he got an assist the game before. Was it Fulham? Well, he was starting to show signs. But like looking at that now, though, is the defensive responsibility more on his mind? Because you've got a gap there between him and Konza, whereas before he'd be sitting in that position where you've got Rodgers there and you'd have a McGinn sort of where Bailey was. So a little less responsibility, but now he's asking to defend and attack. And is it too much for him to take on board, or is it hampering his attacking intent? Is his position where he's collecting the ball deeper than it was last season? And when he's receiving the ball in higher areas, he's producing final actions which are getting the goals and assists. But I feel like he's a little bit deeper. And again, that brings me back to Rodgers' position. Like, Rodgers seems to gravitate more to the left as well, doesn't he? So it's getting him to understand that he needs to be balanced and help out on that right hand side, or maybe even drop back and cover Bailey a little bit as well. There's balancing, there's positioning issues in that final five. But that five that you had there, that's how we were starting the season. Like West Ham, Arsenal, Leicester, we was attacking like that at five, and sometimes Tillemans would join. We'd have six in attack, and like we've got to rediscover that balance. And we've got the best man in the world to do that, to be honest. So
we have. So I just thought I'd just touch on it because it's good to have a discussion about where we're going and what we can possibly do. One thing that's just popped into my head a little bit, which has this got something to do with helping to get the best out of Bailey as well? When we've spoke about in the past the double pivot, and this season I've used the word, it's a bit more like a pendulum. It's a bit more on the same line as opposed to an actual pivot of Kamara sitting. Do you remember when we used to play with that sort of back three, with Kamara sort of really screening that back three? That would give Bailey more license, wouldn't it? I think when we're talking about when Onana's in there, so if you move Kamara and you put Onana there, I don't really feel like Onana's role at the minute is to come over and you make sure you sort of screen that a little bit. He's given a little bit more license to cover a lot of ground in there rather than just go, you got to sit there and break it up. Whereas Kamara under Emery, he's been that player that just goes, you sit there, and that gives everybody else that little bit more license. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, very much so. And it goes back to how we're building and what protection he's got. And you feel like even like Kamara there, it's added protection, isn't it? It takes the pressure away from Bailey. Like it takes that pressure of, if I lose the ball, the lads have got my back. Now, if he loses the ball now, the other team are on transition with no cover. So is it a mental thing in his head that, not fully going for it because of potential repercussions? So I think Kamara coming into this team is big. He's big. Like, he is a Champions League player. He's an absolute baller. He's an incredible footballer, and I feel like with his game intelligence, like, it's going to help us massively. And I don't think he's too far off coming back. He had a real good game against Crystal Palace. I know he made the mistake for the goal, but look, he made it up straight away with that superb ball to Bailey. So it's getting that base right now, isn't it? It's getting that base right. And then once that base is right, then these type of players, we know once they get going, they can flourish, and they're so potent. And then you've got Duran coming off the bench as well. There is bags of goals in them players. So I think once we get them up to speed and once we find our flow, and I did always think, I think I said it on the preview, that we will grow. It'll be a season where we grow, and what we are now will be 100 million times different to how we're going to end the season. Like, and I feel like we're at a stage where we've done enough to get going and get points on the board. And I feel like now is the time where, okay, we're outgrowing sort of that system, that formation. We had to utilise the players that we had, because we started off pretty thin on the ground, squad-wise. So we've done enough to get this far. But when you're competing at the top level in top competitions, you've got to keep evolving your shape and your formation and your tactics. And I felt like on Sunday, we probably kind of come a bit predictable. So I feel like now we're ready for the next phase. Now we've got players back. It's the next growth of our shape and our system, and getting the best out of these players, because we are a very good team when it clicks, Luke. Very, very good.
Yeah, and I think the word transition, it's a word that gets used, but it's a good word for describing how an attacking phase is transitioned then into sort of like defending at times. And I'm now starting to think the more we start talking, like we're just going off on one here. But that ball that Pau played into that area against Spurs. Now, that pass was played into an area where defensively we weren't set right, because it was able to be cut out by an attacking player, and we had a complete lack of cover to be able to defend that moment. So on transition from playing out from the back, we've been caught because we've not been set right, and we have not had that tactical nous about us to make sure we are in the right positions. And obviously, I'm not digging Onana out here because I think it did go to Onana, but it just shows that we've got to get that balance right between being structurally set right, because we can talk about attacking all we want. We can talk about Bailey attacking, Maatsen attacking, Rodgers attacking. But if we're not set right from the base, from the back, then it has a knock-on effect of how we're attacking, because, you know, an attack could start from Martinez and it goes all the way through the team. In like the way you defend, we don't just defend with 5 defenders. We defend with Watkins. He's the first port of call sometimes, because if he presses right, he can win that ball back before it even goes into a central midfield player. And then it can go into a wide player. So it's about finding that balance and getting it right. And I think that's probably the biggest thing for Unai Emery. So within this
I think once you find that balance, then you'll start getting consistency higher up the pitch. Because I feel like we're playing on scenarios at the minute, playing on moments, wherever Rodgers picks it up and he moves into that space and whoever's around him at the time. I feel like it's all very, very erratic, I feel like. But like we pointed out, I think we get the base right, we'll get consistency and structure in the final third.
Yeah, definitely. Right, so line-up wise, is there anything there that you don't like? For Bruges.
Potentially, we messed around with Onana and Kamara. Who did you have in originally?
I had Onana originally, but I think we might see Kamara, you know.
I think it'll be time for Kamara. At the expense of Onana, yeah, probably.
Do you think?
One. Then again, his physicality is really good away, isn't it? Set pieces. But I feel like we've got to play Kamara back in there. He needs minutes. I know he played 90 the other day, but I feel like we do need to get him back into this team. And I think I'd go along with that. I think I'd go along with that lineup. I think Maatsen, you know, he's contributing every time he's coming up. You know, he's knocking at that door, and that knock is getting louder now. And he's really putting the pressure on Luca Dean, and which is healthy for us. Cash went off with a knock, didn't he? So we are left with that back three. Probably too soon for Mings to come in on the Champions League away. He did very well the other night and played 90 minutes, which was surprising. But he did superb, but probably too soon. And it's the Girano or Watkins, isn't it? It's but I think away from home, I think it'll stick with Watkins.
Yeah, so I think that's the lineup. Finally, I was going to ask you, how do you think Emery's going to react to the loss? But I think we've pretty much delved into it there and pretty much covered everything. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
Like you say, any bad runs, consecutive defeats. It helps Emery because he learns more, doesn't he? And we always seem to come back stronger. Like, you know, you do naturally learn more. You pick the bones more from a defeat than, say, a draw against Ipswich, a draw against Man United, a draw against Bournemouth. Now, this defeat against Tottenham just opens your eyes a bit more to go a bit deeper and pick a few more bones. So Emery has every base covered. He'll be working away, probably on the coach on the way back. And laptop will be out, and he'll be debriefing the game intently. So
Right, well, we've gotten pretty in depth there. I think we've chatted on that tactical pad for about 25 minutes.
Sorry if I was waffling. I felt like I was waffling a bit there, but it's good. No, it's good to get stuck in it.
Yeah, it's good to talk tactically and talk in depth about it, because it's something we're all obviously all passionate about this team, but I think there's more to it than just saying he's crap. He needs to come out of the team. Like, why? Like, what needs to improve? What positions on the pitch need to improve? So I think there's a lot there for you all to get your teeth into. You can chat about what we talked about here. Champions League, the away game, Brugge, their tactics, the Villa lineup, Villa tactics, personnel, either side of the double pivot. What I will say, let me know your thoughts on that chat that we had about either side of that double pivot. I think that's going to be interesting to get your thoughts. There was my final thing that I was going to just quickly touch on. Was about McGinn's position. And I'll ask you a simple question. Where's McGinn's best position, Ryan?
Don't know. I like him in the pivot. I think at the end of last season, he played a lot in the pivot, didn't he, with Tillemans in the pivot. I think that right-hand side, he can be good when he's got Bailey in front of him. When there's nothing in front of him, he can't act like a winger. Like you've seen against Tottenham, he dwelled on it quite a lot. You know, that is his style to hold it up. But normally, bang, he's gone. Whereas Spurs, he was just dwelling because I don't think there was an outlet for him. It was come back inside where Spurs are swamping you. So I think, again, lack of options for him. Like, we go back to positioning, don't we? We go back to the build-up. But when he's on form, he can play anywhere across that midfield. But I do like him in the pivot, and I do like him on the right because he gives us a bit more solid. But obviously, with outlet, you know, with balls to play out. So it's finding your backups, it's finding your routes out. It's what's around you, and I feel like for McGinn, he can perform. Like all of them, all of them players have shown over Emery's tenure that they can perform and they can contribute and they can really lift their game. But it needs a unit, it needs the team around them, and it needs to be perfect for them all to click. And it's just finding all that balance again now, I think, Luke.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's been quite a positive upbeat chat, about 40-something minutes. So hopefully you've all enjoyed it. Now, you got to bear with here. Opposition preview. It has been a struggle. It has been a struggle to hunt one of them down. I think I've got one, but we're going to have to wait and see. We're going to have to wait and see. So there should be an opposition one out tomorrow. Basically, if they are reliable and if they turn up. So, so let's hope that they do, because I have literally tried every day for about a week between different avenues to get one. And, you know, I really want to create that content for you. And I think it's a really good insight. So, yeah, let's just fingers crossed they turn up. So, yes, the next one could be that one. If not, it's not my fault, but it could be the match reactions on Wednesday. So, cheers everyone for watching. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.